Welcome to a new video, guys, and as you can see by the title of it, this one may save your marriage. Now, Mavo and I have been doing, this is our second lap, and we've been doing this for a long time now, and quite often we forget about what we've learned along the way with one of the most stressful parts of landing the van and detaching and attaching the van to the car. As we all know, you roll up to the caravan park, it's full to the brim, there's one empty site, and you've got to land that thing on that site, and everybody's watching you. So we're going to go through what we've learnt through other people and just through trial and error and maybe the odd argument. And hopefully, if you're relatively new to this, particularly when you're a couple and you've both got a role to play in this, we can give you a few things to help you get a bit more proficient at this a lot quicker than we did.
Yeah. And feel a bit more confident.
And feel a lot more confident.
Yeah.
So let's get into it, guys. I hope you enjoy this one.
Okay, so this is Dee and Ant's little hot tip. So we have a UHF in the car, and I have a little walkie-talkie that I talk on to Ant, who is in the car. I feel like that saves screaming out in a caravan park in front of everybody. Go left, go right, no, stop. It saves all of that. So I jump on that, we choose a channel that not many people are on, and we use that, obviously not channel 40, and I direct Ant. So when I'm directing Ant, this is the hot tip. We learnt this when we were on our first lap, is that if I'm standing next to Ant who's driving, and I am looking at the drawbar, and I want the back of the van to turn left, I say to Ant, left hand down, and vice versa. If I want the back of the van to go right, it's right hand down for Ant. Because we've been doing this for, I guess, a while now, we've become a bit accustomed to, you know, I'm able to do that from the back of the van, remembering it's the opposite. So if you're at the back of the van, it's not the same. You need to make sure that the directions that you're giving the driver is you looking at the drawbar, and then the back of the van, whatever way you want that way to go, is whatever direction you tell the driver.
All right, so we've got a bit of a really awkward site here. Mavo's out plotting where to go. There's a good chance there'll be an argument here based on the fact that we're not fully aligned on where we're going to land, but the reason it's a difficult site is it's a really odd shape, it's really long, and we're trying to work out, because we're off grid, how we're going to get sun into the solar panels and things like that, because they're off grid for 3 days. So anyway, old Mavo's going to direct me in, and hopefully we can follow some of the principles that we just talked about. You'll be able to watch my face and see whether I'm enjoying it or not.
Alright, can I get a copy?
Copy that, big girl.
Alright, let's do this.
So I want the van to go right at the back towards the right, so it's
okay,
left hand down.
You want a left hand down?
There you go, see. It's got to watch a little pile of rocks here too.
Hard. Give it hard.
I don't want to hit those rocks, mate.
It's fine. I'm here to guide you. Right, now ease her off and bring it straight back. Right hand down. Right hand hard.
I'm at full lock. Hence the rocks that I was trying to miss.
You're a bit too tight there, mate.
No.
Back out. No, take it right back out, mate. Alright. Now come back. A little bit of right hand. Don't be so sharp. Bit more right hand. Okay, now straight back. Perfect. Bring it back. Keep coming back. Right hand down. You're going left. Right hand down. Yeah, and not that much. And bring it straight back. I'll tell you when to kick it, which you'll need to do a hard right. Keep coming, keep coming. Keep coming. Okay, now start to right hand down, if that's where you want it.
Thanks.
Keep coming back. Alright, do you want to have a look and see if you're happy with that?
Yeah, can you have a look at the left to right too, please?
Copy. Is that what you wanted?
Yeah, sort of. Yes, because we don't want... Yes, we've got a better angle with the sun.
Perfect.
2, we can get the awning out. 3, we're not looking straight into the western sun. Good job, baby.
Woo! Just needs a couple of chops.
All right, so Mavo's happy, which means that I'm happy. Again, tricky spot, but I think we've positioned the van where we're not going to be looking straight into the western sun. We're going to get some decent solar, even though there's lots of trees around. And I still haven't worked out Starlink positioning, but we don't have to do that much work here this weekend. So
Good job.
all right, so we've got the van into position and we're not divorced yet. The next step is detaching the van, and because Mavo and I have been travelling effectively for 2 laps now, we kind of forget that a lot of people are relatively new to this. So I'll do it as slowly as I can, but I'll also point out some really critical pieces which I think are almost like a process that you need to follow. So when you think about safety in one of the places that you want to be really, really safe, it's when you get in an aeroplane. And the reason that aeroplanes are so rigorously safety orientated and that sort of thing is because the pilot, every single time they get into the plane, goes through a linear process of everything that they do to ensure not only do they get to their destination, but everybody gets there safely. So I'm not really a pilot, but it's a sort of a similar principle. There's 2 things that you need to do. 1, make sure you follow the same process every single time, so you get your process bedded down and you've got it right for you. And the other thing is, try to limit or even completely mitigate any conversation with people around you while you're doing this, because of the number one thing that will break your process, which then breaks your safety or makes you could get in the way of your safety, is when you get interrupted. Because when you're halfway through a process, you forget where you're up to. If you forget a critical point, like literally clicking the van on the DO35 hitch to make sure it binds to the car, that's when stuff goes wrong. So we're going to detach first, but I'll sort of talk through attaching and detaching and the process that I follow, because realistically the attaching process is exactly the same but in a reverse order when you're detaching from the car. A couple of things though when you're detaching from the car. So I've turned the car off just so you don't hear the noise. You want to make sure that you're chocking the front and the back, because we're going to be tipping the van off to get it off the ball, and then we're going to be tipping the van back down to get it all level for our sleeping setup. So if we've got chocks on both sides, you're going to eliminate, even though we're going to use a handbrake in a second when you see the process, mitigating if I forget that step, so that you're sort of safety first. Now, we're going to come over here. I'll do it from this side, which isn't the way that I normally do it, but another couple of key pieces of safety that you need to think about. So, first thing I'm going to do before I detach everything here is get the jockey wheel into position. Now, all of you Jawa people would be using a DO35, a ARC 750 Extreme off-road jockey wheel. You'd be using a DO35 as well. This is going to look different depending on the jockey wheel that you've got. So what I'm going to do, first thing, get that jockey wheel into place. Now, you would have heard that click. Come here, Mavo. Because I've seen this go wrong. I need you up the top here. There's little pins in the bottom there that are all the way through, so I'll pull them out. See how they pulled out? And then I drop them in. You really need to make sure that those pins are fully engaged. I've done it with a box trailer before where they're not fully engaged, and when there's been movement in the jockey wheel, particularly when the weight comes off the ball, the jockey wheel's collapsed. Not very good. So you want to make sure that those pins are fully engaged. I give it a bit of a rattle. The next thing we're going to do, we use one of these just to land, to make sure that the wheels are locked and sort of secure in place. I've got to make a decision point now around, do I stick with the jockey wheel at this height, or on this ARC 750, do I raise it up or do I drop it down? I think it's pretty good at the moment. We're only here for a few days, so I'm actually going to start to get this wound down. Now, lots of different thoughts on this. I like to actually move it all the way over here so that it's going to be tracking with the van. The most important part here is this pin. If you get this pin misaligned with these holes there, so seeing those holes, when we're winding back down to get our right height for where we're going to set up the van, that's going to get in the way and that's going to get bent, or it's either going to damage some of this casing here. So I pull it sort of all the way under here, and then I just get it to a point where we've got some tension on the ground. So I'll just make sure that's there. That's nice and secure now. We're starting to take a bit of pressure off the ball. So we're in there. The next thing I'm going to do before I even start to think about detaching from the car is I'm going to pull the handbrake. That, obviously those wheel chocks may help, but that is what's going to keep the van from moving a great deal. I'm then going to, you might need to come over this side maybe. I'm then going to reverse engineer everything that I've done. So I'm going to undo my safety chains. I'll put them down here out of the way. Get rid of my breakaway cable. Pull these under. Set these up. I try to take any twists out of these safety chains before I anchor them to the side of the van, just because you don't want any twists when you're actually putting them together. Now, some people will probably say, no, you don't crisscross your chains anymore. There's a big debate on it online. I've always crisscrossed chains, never had any problems. The thing that I like about a crisscross chain is if in the event this does come off the car, it sort of forms a bit of a cradle, stops as much damage being done there. But I'm sure there's an argument for not crisscrossing the chains. But anyway, the good thing is you've got chains in place. Then I'm going to undo my 7-pin and my Anderson plug. And then, just like this is the first thing I do when I put it onto the car, it's the last thing I do when I take it off from the car. So flip that cap open, push your DO35 and lock it in the open position. We've got our handbrake on, we've got our chocks in place both sides of the wheel. And we've got all of our safety chains and stuff taken off. So now it's time to actually leverage the van off the car. So wind it up. Just do it nice and slowly. Go. She's let go. See how it moved a little bit then?
Yeah.
That's why you want to have your wheel chocks on place. That's why you want to make sure your pins are engaged, because if that wasn't engaged and that moved like that, it'd probably come down. So, and that's no good for anybody. Either having to get it back up, but also in case you've got your feet or limbs around. So we're up now, we're clear of the car. I'll get Mavi to move the car. Yep. And then we'll come back to actually getting the van set up. So the Mavo's moved Barry out of the way now. The last thing we've got to do is really just secure the van for the next few nights as we're camping here at beautiful Cygnet Bay. So I'm going to wind it down into position. I'm going to have a look at the bubble.
Oh, that's really high.
Probably need to go a little bit further down, don't we?
Yeah, a bit more.
Okay.
The bed is at the front of the van for this one, so we like to have it on a slight tilt, but not that much. That should be okay.
We'll have a look, mate. That's yours. It's usually Mavo's job to have a look. We're a little bit high. That's the way we want it. Yeah. Because we're going to be showering down this end, so we want it to run to the drain. Correct. And we don't want to be sleeping with our heads downhill. So there you have it, guys. Now, really quickly, we've done the reversing piece. We've also done the detach from the car. It is the reverse order when you're attaching to the car. So if you do want to see me do a video on actually attaching to the car, let me know. But the number one thing for me is, number one, no conversation and interruptions And we learnt this. Maeve and I made this mistake first when we were getting used to caravanning a lot and that sort of thing. Maeve loves giving me instructions all of the time, and she just spurts them out as soon as they come into her mind. The rule of thumb, and it's not to be rude or anything, but it is making sure that I can go through my attachment and detachment process with the car without any interruptions, and that's going to ensure safety. Make sure those pins are lined up on your jockey wheel, because you do not want your van, when it, particularly as you saw when it detached from the car there, from the ball, it will move a little bit. You don't want that jockey wheel to fail and fall. And thirdly, just chock your wheels. I mean, it's just really good practice, and it may look like perfectly flat ground, but just do it. All right, so it is hookup day, and this is another area where can create a little bit of stress and tension if you haven't got, particularly if you're doing it as two people or a couple or something like that, can create a bit of angst. So we've got individual roles. Obviously my role is to back the car back and nail it, the DO35 pin under the hitch. So we've got the van jacked up, ready to go. The legs are already up. I've double checked that the chocks are in place as well, because this is another place where you need to double check your handbrake, make sure your chocks are in place in case the van moves. Probably won't, but in case it does move. And so Mavie's role is to, what do you do, Mavie?
So I just give Ant a little bit of a hand with the lining up. I don't even communicate with him verbally. I just use little hand signals. So you could do that, or you could do what we do, or you could use the little handheld UHF to communicate with each other. Either way would work brilliantly in order to hook up successfully.
Full transparency, I do have a reversing camera here
absolutely.
as well, with makes things easier. With the DO35 hitch, there's a fluorescent yellow line, and I'm looking at the pin in my rear vision camera, and then that line, and trying to get in neatly under there. But the problem with that is, first of all, no sunglasses, because it makes it harder to see your screen. Like with what the hookup I'm doing now, we've got an angle that the van's going to be onto the car because of the orientation of the site. We've also got a lot of trees coming over, so it's a lot of shadow. So it does make it much harder to line it up. You could do this yourself. I've done it myself a few times on the simple ones. Yeah. But when there's two of you, you utilize two minds to make it better, as long as you've got your communication and your process right. So here we go. We're going to go and reverse up and hitch up, and then I'll run you through the hitching routine and the rules that we've got when we're hitching the van to make sure that you tow safely away. Ready? Ready. Off you go, mate. So I am using my reverse camera, but I've got my clear view mirrors as well, and I utilize particularly the lower mirrors when I'm doing this reverse as well, because you can never truly rely on the accuracy of the reversing camera. So what I'm watching for is little Mavie doing hand signals behind me. So she's just pointing to the pin at the moment. You've also got to make sure when you're angling that you're not about to go with the front of your car into a tree or anything like that. And I'm just backing towards that pin now. You'll hear my little sonar telling me I'm about to hit something. So I'm nearly lined up. I'm about an inch away now. So Mavo's giving me an indicator. She told me to stop. She's now telling me to pull the handbrake on. When the handbrake goes on, I lose the visual from the camera, so she's giving me a thumbs up in the rear vision mirror now. Looks like we're in line. Let's go to the back of the car. All right, so we're going to hook the van up. First rule of thumb, and this is where we have to be really strict with each other, that there's to be no communication or other orders or questions or things to think about, because this is the part we're going to be a little bit like a pilot. We're going to have a routine that we go through, which is the same every single time. As I said a little bit earlier in the video, it's the reverse order to when you're unhitching the van. So we're going to hitch it up. So first things first, we've lined the pin up. Keep your hand out of the way and watch it just gently glide on there. Now once I've got enough tension on the ball and off the jockey wheel, I'm going to, the first thing I'm going to do is click that in. It's as simple as that, and we now know that that's attached to the van. A really good thing with DO35 hitches is this cap will not go on properly. It won't link and click in unless that pin is pushed. So it's a bit of an added safety feature. So that's just clicked on. It's not going to come off with too much pressure. And I know that my van, if I forget to do any of the other stuff, which I won't, but we know that the van is hitched to the car. This is the biggest mistake, and probably 90% of vans coming unhitched from cars is when that pin on the DO35 hitch is not pushed in. So that is firstly the most critical thing. Next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to wind my jockey wheel back into position. Get it up. I like to bring it around so the wheels are sitting perpendicular to the van. Pull my little ground off. Put my handle in because you don't want to drive away and lose that handle. Whack that there. I'm then going to swing this into position. Now again, making sure that those pins are fully engaged in that little bracket there, because you don't want this coming down as you're driving along. Drop that down. Jockey wheel's done. Car's attached to the van. The next thing I'm going to do is quickly grab some of my services out of the way, and I'm going to do my chains. Now the big thing with the chains, guys, and I talked about this earlier in the video, some people say you crisscross them, other people say you don't crisscross them. I come from the school of crisscrossing. To be really honest, maybe because of the angle of the crisscross you might weaken the strength of the chain ever so slightly, but again, it forms that cradle underneath. If you were in the very minuscule chance lose your van, there's a bit of a cradle from the chains created that hitch is going to drop down, so and be caught by the chains as well. So the first thing you got to do when you're putting your chains on is look for any twists. You want to make sure that your links are lined up nice and straight, and make sure you haven't got any twists in that chain. It's generally where there's the least resistance when you try to rotate them around. I'm going to do my D shackles up now, and then I'll come back and show you the rest of the setup. So I've got my chains on now. What I'm going to do now is just make sure that I get my 7-pin in there now. Really quickly with your 7-pin, just check for any dust and that sort of thing that may have accumulated in there. And probably the best thing to do before you take off is just check your indicators and your brake lights to make sure they're working. I've also got my Anderson, which is going to feed from the alternator into the van to charge the battery as we drive along, albeit that we're only moving sites in the same campsite today, so we're not going to be traveling very far. To be really honest, if I wasn't doing that video, I probably wouldn't have bothered with this. The next thing I'm going to do is get my breakaway cable out of the way. I'm actually going to undo the handbrake. Again, you should be able to feel it if you take off with your handbrake on, because your car's going to be working an awful lot harder, but you don't want that engaged. It's going to ruin the handbrake if you drive around with that engaged. Now with the breakaway cable, guys, there's a fair bit of debate on what you do with breakaway cables. I've got a solid rear bar. So that solid rear bar is held on by 12 bolts into my chassis rails, and this is a single piece solid rear bar. So what I do is I tend to just clip in to the bottom of the hitch here and then run it back to the van. The key with your breakaway cable is you want to make sure that the run is shorter than your chains, because in the event of it being right down here, your chains pull tight, this is actually never going to pull tight. So your breakaway cable, almost like a hand grenade, is going to pull this pin out and engage your brakes in the minuscule event of your van coming away from your car. Because we're only moving sites today, I'm not going to bother with the breakaway cable, but you've got to make sure that the run is shorter than your chain run so that it pulls this this pin out here to activate your brakes. Now the last thing that we're going to do is, now that we've done all that, Mavo hasn't asked me any questions or anything like that, we're just going to double check this to make sure, because this is a critical part, guys. This is what connects the van to the car. What we're then going to do is just a quick walk around. Check the legs, check any roof hatches, check to make sure any of our outside tunnel boots and that sort of thing are all in the locked position, and we're good to go. So, hot tips from Mavo and Ant around how to save your marriage, and this is probably the most stressful part of when you're traveling full time, or even when you travel for the odd trip here and there, is that landing the van and then attaching and detaching it to the car. Cheers guys, please whack in the questions that come to mind. We do forget some of the time that we've been doing this for so long. We may skip steps that people may have in their mind, so please ask questions and please give us feedback on the video. Cheers guys.